You're listening to Mountain Heartbeat with Joe and Rosa Hopkins, proclaiming the gospel through word and through song.
Hi, and welcome to Mountain Heartbeat. I'm Joe Hopkins. This week we're going to play for you an interview that Rosa conducted with author, songwriter, and musician Gwen Smith.
So today on Mountain Heartbeat, we have recording artist, author, and Girlfriends in God co-founder Gwen Smith. Gwen, welcome, and thank you so much for being on Mountain Heartbeat with us today.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And so I don't really want to tell your story for our listeners or for you, so I will just go ahead and I will ask you if you could just share share your testimony with us today about what happened when you were in college and when you found out that you were pregnant.
Absolutely. Well, mine is definitely a restoration story, so give a foreshadowing of that. Before college, I guess we want to back up because I was raised in a loving Christian home, big family, middle of 5 kids born in 8 years. My mom should have a medal. And when I went off to college, I actually went off as a student athlete on a full scholarship for volleyball. And when I did find out that I was pregnant, it was a natural collision with my plans. And at that point in my life, though I had not turned away from God per se in a rebellious way, I was definitely living for my own gratification according to my own whims and desires. And obviously, when I found that, I always say when that stick turned blue, my heart turned black, and I went into survival mode instead of considering the leading of God and of hope. And so quickly, my world just tumbled into massive decisions, and my boyfriend at the time and I went. We went into how can we make this go away. And unfortunately, we made the worst choice of our lives by heading to an abortion clinic and by terminating our baby to life. And it was, to say devastating doesn't even seem to be an accurate word. It seems, how do you describe, life being sucked from your body and the horror of hating the very fiber of who you are because of the choices that you are making. It literally, the abortion itself was horrible, but then the pit that I found myself in emotionally and just as a human was so dark and so jagged and so evil afterwards. I just there was no way to prepare for it. I hated myself. It was so. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't consider is most abortions are secret. I mean, no one knew, and so all of this turmoil is going on behind the scenes of your life in a way, because when you're in public, you've got a smile on, you're pretending like everything's fine, but it just seems like such a fake act. And so I just felt like I was dying on the inside because of my choice and the pain. It was just extraordinary, and I was fine for a while with the pain because I felt like I should be in pain. I hated the choice I had made. I hated who I had become, that I would let myself do that, because I was raised in church. I had prayed to God as a child, and I had started to really grow in faith as a teenager. I knew God. I knew that was not His plan for me. I knew it was not His best for me, and yet I turned away from His best and chose death. And so I could not reconcile how I could ever have any type of restoration with Him as a result of my choice. And in the darkness of that, is where, I met brokenness on a level that I just never anticipated.
Yeah, if I could ask you something right here, there's a misconception I think a lot of people have that abortion is something that doesn't take place among Christians. It's not something that happens in church. There is this idea that's floating around out there. But so you obviously, you knew that you knew that you knew who Jesus was. You had a relationship with him. You were close to him. And so I would ask this just because of the misconceptions that people have. Why did you feel that it wasn't something that you could come forward with and say, Jesus loves the woman? In other words, even if you've had a sinful, if you've done something like having intercourse out of wedlock, whatever, that when you confess your sins, that God, in other words, that he'll find another plan. Why the need in the church for secrecy and to go this route as if there is no secondary plan, as if God doesn't have a plan for you and your baby? Why are church people taking that route?
Rose, I love that question. I can sum it up with one main word, and that is pride. And the second word would be self-centeredness, and that's kind of a conjunction, so I don't know if it counts. But honestly, it was mostly pride. It was saving face. It was just a visceral decision to take things into my own hands because it was my fault that they were that way in the beginning. And so I was trying to grasp for control of something that I had no right to try and control. And I do believe, truly, that one of the reasons God has given me the platform that I have today to minister to women, to share his hope, his love, his willingness to forgive, his mercy, his goodness, and his holiness is because of exactly what you asked me. It is because there are so many among us in the pews who do love Jesus, but who just get trapped in their behaviors and their sins and their addictions and their choices. And Jesus said it to the Pharisees, I did not come. He said he came to heal the sick and to really reach out to those who are wounded. But sometimes in the church, we just want the healed, the clean, and the tidy. And so it was pride. It was what would they think, and it was just. I promise you. The one thing I found in the years of me sharing my testimony, because it is a testimony of restoration, God did meet me in the brokenness, and I'll share a little bit more about that. But one of the reasons that I never told was it was the question, what will they think? And that can be, that can halt you in your tracks.
I do think that that's very important that our listeners hear that, because there could be somebody who's trapped in that secrecy right now and they don't realize that that's not the gospel. The gospel is that those that confess their sins, they find forgiveness, and that they don't have to be in the dark, fearing, and then falling further down into sin. And so I really appreciate that. And I don't say that to put you on the spot. It's just that we have people out there that they're also believing that you've got to put on this face, and God didn't come so that we could, I guess, complete his work in our own flesh. And we do that with everything. I mean, I do that with things. We're all guilty. We all do that, and we all fall into that. And so, and I promise you, we will get to the redemptive part, but I do also want to ask you, I'm sorry, but so many of the testimonies from post-abortive mothers that I've heard is that they had this idea that it would just sort of be a shortcut, or in other words, like a fix. They didn't intend that the consequences would continue on after the abortion. And I think that's a misconception too. And that's...
It is. I felt like it was the solution to my problem.
Yeah.
And pregnancy should never be a problem. But what you're saying, Rosa, is so spot on. And I have to tell you, that as I share my testimony and talk about the fact that if you would have told me when I was a teenager walking with the Lord that this would be my story, I would have said, there is not a chance in the world, because I love the Lord. I want his way. I'm yielding to him. There is not anything in us that is above stepping out of his plan in any way. And I'm living proof. And I have seen eyeball to eyeball with woman after woman after woman all over this country and many others who've come up to me and said, I have the same story. That 1/3 of all women who have walked those dark halls of death and chosen that for their babies, they are just as much in the church as they are outside of the church. And the ones who have already been there, done that, they need healing, they need hope, and they need to recognize that because of what we did, we are not obligated to silence.
No.
I feel like it's the opposite. Because of what I've done, because of where I've been, it is my opportunity to allow the devastation and the horror that I went through to become a springboard of prevention, of protection, of hope for other women, for unborn women, for the women who find themselves with an unplanned pregnancy, to say to them, you have an opportunity here. Yes, this happened. That is in the past. But this life is to be regarded. It is to be protected. It is to be cherished. And so I kind of thought about it this way. If I had been careless and ran out in the middle of traffic and got lambasted by a car, and I had absolutely devastating lifetime effects and was really severely wounded, would I then never be able to tell anybody what I did, or would I say, stay out of the street?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so powerful.
Thank you for joining us this week on Mountain Heartbeat. We would encourage you to listen to the second part of this interview with Gwen Smith next week on the same channel and same time that you heard this program. If you'd like to find Gwen Smith online, you can go to gwensmith.net. From there you can find her blogs and music. We would like to leave you this week with a song. It's called Revive Us.
Send revival to our land. Lord Jesus is our prayer. Of our sins we do repent. Oh Jesus, hear from heaven. Heal our land. Revive us, revive us. We return unto thee in sackcloth and ashes in our hearts. We beg of thee. We do humble ourselves under your mighty hand. We return unto thee. Jesus, forgive us. This we ask. Revive us, revive us. We return unto thee.